Settling down onto your backs. And the first thing you can do once you've arrived is to feel the weight of your head on the floor, and then just start to let your head ease a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. You're rolling your head from side to side. And as you do so, notice how the back of your head feels on the ground, so that's changing contact of the back of your head. Also notice how your neck feels, how your shoulders feel. Try and let your shoulders rest back onto the ground. And perhaps a couple more times, let your head roll to the right and to the left. And then come to settle down in a comfortable place with the centre of the back of your head on the floor or thereabouts. And if your legs are long, actually, I think all of you have got bent knees, which is great, because then what I'd like you to do is start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And just keep this really easy, knees side to side. Just go as far as feels comfortable, so you don't need to go as far as you can. If everything feels really easy today, you might like to make it a larger movement, but if you're feeling a bit stiff and creaky, then keep it small, go easy. And just do this a few more times, to the right and to the left. Okay, pause in the middle for a moment. Keep your knees bent and cross your arms over your chest. Okay, so still knees bent, cross your arms over your chest. And now come to a little bit of rocking where you're letting your knees and your elbows and your head all tilt in the same direction. That's it. So you're rocking across the back of your body. So that's it. Let the elbows move from side to side as well. And so if you feel that you're rolling onto your hands, just sort of reach out along the floor with your fingertips away from your body. That's it. That's very nice. Good. So we can just have this hopefully rather nice feeling of rolling side to side across the back of the body. And again, it's really up to you how big or small you make this movement. Probably what's most important is to do something enjoyable. So maybe once, twice more to each side. 3 times if you're enjoying it. Good. And then pause in the center, uncross your arms. And just breathe. So you might like to lengthen your legs out on the floor. You might like to keep your knees bent. Maybe bring your hands onto the front of your body somewhere. And for a few cycles of breath, gather your attention into your breathing. And so after the movement, just see how it feels to be quiet for a moment, to feel the movement of your breath through your body. And something I've been exploring in my classes and practice probably over the last week or so is this sort of, we can move, we can be still in yoga. And both these things are helpful, valid, and perhaps we'll be exploring a little bit more of that today. So maybe just one more cycle of breath where you feel the breath come in, you feel the breath leave you. And then from here, you're going to fold your knees into your chest. That's it. And when you arrive with your knees folded into your chest, just for a moment, see what would you like to do here. So you could be still and just quiet, or you could be rocking a little bit. And you know, probably the most helpful thing is this sense of can we see what our body wants and then do that, whether it's being still or whether it's moving. Hi, May. Hi. And just lying down, May. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to come to Apanasana now, which is when we move with our breathing. We did this last Wednesday, but it doesn't matter whether you were here or not. So you're going to bring your hands onto your knees. You can have your hands on your knees, your fingers pointing towards your toes. As you breathe in, you move your knees away from your chest. As you exhale, you fold your knees back in towards you. So this is, I suppose, we're moving with our breath, which means we slow the movement down, and our focus becomes very much our breathing. So breathing in, the knees move away. Breathing out, the knees fold back in towards you. Good. So do this 4 more times. I always find it really hard to keep track of counting anything more than 3. So don't worry if you do lose track. Good. So breathing in, let the knees move away from your chest. Exhaling, let the knees fold in towards you. Perhaps 2 more times now. Good. And when you've finished with that, you could then take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a little bit of a shake out. And you could add your arms in if you like. And just see what you want to do when you, that's very nice, yeah, good. And then you can fold your knees back into your chest and just have, well, see what it feels like to have a couple of quiet breaths there. So sometimes I like to do the variation where I just bring my hands into that fold at the back of my knees and my elbows are sort of dropping down towards the floor. So what I always think about being like child pose on your back. So how does it feel to have a couple of quiet breaths, the weight of the folded legs resting down onto your chest? Let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. Maybe 1 more cycle of breath here, knees folded into your chest. And then let your legs lengthen out on the floor. And see how it feels now to lie with your legs long. And you could roll your knees or give your knees a little bit of a bounce. Good. And from lying with your legs long, you're then going to roll over onto your belly. And see how it feels to settle on your belly. So I tend to take one hand on top of the other hand and rest my cheek or my forehead on my hands. Now, we're not going to do anything particularly dramatic here. We're just going to do a couple of things. The first thing is to give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. So really what we're thinking about is how can we settle on our bellies and feel comfortable? And it might be that you instantly feel comfortable here. So you can just enjoy it. So a bit of the wiggle of the pelvis, and then you can stop wiggling your pelvis, have a couple of quiet breaths and just see how does it feel to be on your belly, feeling the movement of your breath through your body. And then you can bend your knees and take the soles of your feet towards the ceiling. That's it. And start to let your feet tilt to the right and to the left. And see, that's it. See how that feels. Good. So let the feet tilt from side to side, just in a sort of easy rocking movement. Feet to the right, feet to the left. That's nice. And just, as long as this feels comfortable, do it a few more times. If your lower back doesn't like it, you might take your feet a bit lower down, nearer to the floor, or you might just not do it at all. And once you've done it a couple more times, let the legs come back onto the floor and just give yourself another couple of quiet cycles of breath lying on your belly. When we're we're on our belly, perhaps we feel the breathing more clearly in the back of our body, in our back ribs, back part of our lungs. So letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave. And then from being on your belly, you're going to fold into child pose. And when you arrive in child pose, just, again, see what would you like to do in child pose. You can just sort of be quiet in child pose for a couple of breaths. We're not going to be here long. You can always wiggle your pelvis a little bit from side to side in child, if that's something you like to do or think would feel nice. So a couple of breaths in child. And then from child pose, we're going to come over onto hands and knees. We're going to do a little bit of cat, a little bit of tail wagging, and then we're going to start to move through, I suppose, some sequences from the ground. So, yeah, when you're ready, hands and knees. And just remember to take plenty of breaks to have drinks of water if you starting to feel hot. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. So coming to the movement of cat and seeing how that feels in your body today. So when we move, this is this sort of opportunity for us to have it, it helps us to connect with our body, to feel our body. It's easier to feel our body in movement. A bit of rounding and dipping of your spine. And then you could move on to a little bit of so side bending movements. I always call it tail wagging, where we imagine we have a tail and we wag our tail from side to side or swish it from side to side if you're going to imagine you're a fish rather than a dog. So you can do a little bit of swishing your tail from side to side, and then perhaps come back to a little bit more cat once you've done a bit of tail wagging. I always find once I've done a bit of the tail wagging movements, yes, and I can see some of you adding your head in, which is nice. I always find then when I come back to cat, it just feels a little bit easier and more comfortable. And when you've done a few cycles of cat, you're going to, from a rounded up cat, rock back into child pose just for a couple of breaths to take the weight off your hands, because then we're going to come on into dog. So round your back to the ceiling, rock your hips back over your heels, come back into child pose. And again, just have a couple of breaths there. Or if you prefer, you can be in kneeling. Okay, coming back onto hands and knees now. So we're going to move through dog pose, a forward bend, and roll up into standing, and then sort of make our way back down again. So hands and knees, when you're ready, tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips back and then up into dog. And just, seeing how your dog pose feels. And dog pose is usually somewhere, certainly for our first few dogs, where it's helpful to move, to bend one knee, to bend the other knee, to let our head go, just to use movement to ease out all of our sort of tight, sort of dusty corners. So perhaps another couple of breaths in dog. And from dog, when you're ready, you're going to start to walk your hands in towards your feet. So you end up in a forward bend. And when you end up in this forward bend, there's options. You could be bending your knees, resting your elbows on your thighs. You could be letting your arms hang. If you feel that you really would like some movement in your forward bend, you could sweep your arms from side to side around the fronts of your feet. That's another option. And from our forward bend, in a moment, we're going to roll up into standing. And I think this time, just let your arms hang as you roll up, unless you need to walk your hands up the fronts of your feet. So you're going to arrive in standing on your mat, and all I'd like you to do is then from your standing, I think you've all got space, just do a little bit of swinging your arms from side to side, crossing them in front of you. And from here, you're going to swing your arms all the way, which I know is not, not the most pleasant place to be. So take the arms up and just see how it feels here to be long and tall for a moment with the arms up. And then you're going to let a breath come in. And as you exhale, come all the way back down into your forward bend. Couple of breaths in the forward bend, and then we'll go back through dog and knees. So you can really in your own time, from your forward bend back into dog pose. Seeing how this second dog pose feels, again, what movement is helpful. In dog, we can really focus on the feet. We can come up onto the ball of each foot in turn. We can roll through onto the tops of the toes on one foot at a time, please not two. So sometimes focusing our movement in one part of the body, like the feet, can actually help release the rest of us. So if you want to do those ones where you're rolling through the ball of the foot to the tops of the toes and one foot and the other. And when you come back down onto hands and knees, where are we? Yeah, so when you come back down on onto hands and knees, we're going to step one foot forward. So I'm sort of from this up kneeling position, but sometimes you need your fingers on the floor. You're going to come to this place where we've got one foot stepped forwards. It's like a mini lunge. And you need to have your, if we go this way, you need to make sure you've got this bit of this sideways space that you don't put you on a tightrope. So here, let's just see if we can stay steady below the waist and swing the arms a little bit from side to side. So the shoulders are turning, good. The head's turning, the ribs are turning. And then you can finish, turn towards your, or stay rather, turning towards your front leg. That's it, so turn to, that's it the other way, that's it Sarah. Turn towards the front leg. Your front hand can rest on that leg. The back arm can just, you can give that back arm away, or the hand can rest on your pelvis. What we're primarily thinking about here is the back shoulder moving back and down, and the ribs turning towards that front leg. Another breath or two. Good. And then from here, we're going to untwist. So we're going to turn back to face the front leg. You're going to fold down over your front leg and then tuck your toes under and start to walk your back leg away. So you're coming into more of a normal lunge now, up off the back of my mat. So if like me, you have to shuffle forwards a bit, do so. So you're down in the lunge, and then you've got some choices here. So you might want to stay in lunge. Your back toes tucked under, could be tucked under or flat. Or you could do a little bit of easing in and out of lunge. So from lunge, if your back toes are flat, so mine seem to be ending up in the plant, you can then do a little bit of easing back. So looking back behind you, that's it, sort of easing out of lunge, and then coming back into lunge. And I'm going to really leave that up to you about how much you stay in lunge, sort of still focusing on your breathing, and how much you'd prefer just to go in and out. Rocking back, looking back. So both things. A couple more breaths in lunge. This on this side. This is your opportunity, and then we will ease back. So just close to looking back behind you. And then we're going to come into, and just turning knee to, so you're going to be stepping the other foot forward, sort of smaller distance, so we do our twist. You've got your foot stretch forward, and then we can do sort of a little bit of swinging our arms from side to side. So just looking for this feeling of being steady and planted from the waist down and light through the arms and the shoulders. And then again, as we did on the other side, you can end up turned towards your front leg. Your hand can rest, your front hand can rest on that thigh. The back arm, you're sort of giving the back arm away, shaking it out. Maybe then resting it on the back of your pelvis. Keep thinking about the shoulders dropping, the back shoulder moving down and back. Feeling the movement in the ribs. Lovely. Good. Good. Okay, untwist. Like we did on the other side, then fold forwards over that front foot and start to walk your back foot away. So you're coming now again into this stretch of lunge where we obviously feel it through the front of the back thigh. And again, up to you whether you stay in lunge. So of course, if you're staying in lunge, you've got the choice about back toes tucked under or flat. If you want to do a bit of easing in and out of lunge, I find it's better for my back knee to have my toes untucked if I'm doing this. Rocking back, looking back behind you, coming back into lunge. If you're doing this sort of in and out, you can explore almost like your cat-like movements. So when you come into lunge, you come up onto your fingertips and your gaze comes forwards a bit more. As you rock back into the easing back one, you look back behind you and your back rounds. So you don't have to sort of overdo that, but there's a little bit of that sort of echo of cat. So when we come into lunge, we're just maybe up on the fingertips. Can we let the shoulders slide down the back? So obviously you don't have to be easing in and out. So I've just on this side seem to think it feels quite nice. So perhaps once more into lunge, maybe see if this time in lunge we can feel that we can stay there. I tend to find if I'm staying in lunge, I just really at this point tend to look down and feel that I'm letting my pelvis go. I'm not worrying too much about the upper back. I'm just trying to feel comfortable through the shoulders and give the weight of the pelvis to the ground. And then let's ease back. One last time. Good. And then from here, we're going to come back to dog pose, walking our hands into a forward bend, coming up into standing. And again, we're just going to do a little thing in standing, back down again. So when you're ready, back onto hands and knees, tucking your toes under, rocking your hips back over your heels, coming up into dog pose. And having a few, see how you feel in dog. How does this, I think we're on our third dog pose now, maybe things are starting to undo a bit. And again, what do you want to do in dog? We focused on the feet in our last dog pose. Perhaps you could focus on your head here. Can you really let your head go? Some people like to give their heads a shake out. Not everyone likes to do that. Might be just that you let your head hang. Feel wide across the back of the shoulders so the neck can feel nice and long. And then from dog pose, when you like, when you're ready, start to walk your hands in towards your feet and arrive in your forward bend. And give yourself enough time to arrive here. And also to have a sense of what would you like to do in your forward bend. Would you like to be still? Might be that you want to bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs. Maybe you want to let your arms hang. Maybe you want some movement. Maybe you want to sweep your arms side around your feet. This time forward bend, we're going to roll up into standing, touching the backs of our hands together. So we're going to take our arms straight up to the ceiling. So let a breath come in as you exhale, touch the backs of the hands together, trail your hands up front of your body. All the way into standing, take your arms up, come in. And then the arms. And keep your hand in prayer pose. Maybe just have a little look at your feet. and check that they're well planted on the floor. And then I'd like you to stop looking at your feet and just start to sway a little bit from side to side. So you're rocking your weight over one foot and leg and then the other. And from here in a moment, keep your feet planted on the floor, however, because from here, you're going to be taking your weight completely onto one leg and foot. And the foot that comes off the floor is just going to stand on the standing foot. So you're coming into a little mini balance, just standing one foot on the other. Good. Let breath come in, let a breath leave. And for me, you could stay here with your hands in prayer pose, but if you feel quite steady, you could see what it's like to then let your arms come up again. But keep the shoulders nice and relaxed. Good. And see how steady, balances are. We're looking for stillness, but that might not be what we find. Good. Good. And we could gather the hands back together in prayer pose in front of us. Lovely. Very, very nice. Good. And then come down and have a little shake out before we do the other side. So a little shake out of everything. And then again, looking at the feet, settling the feet, bringing the hands into prayer pose. A little bit of rocking side to side. We know which foot we're standing on now, but I always find the swaying just helps me to settle my body, settling. It's all one, isn't it? Body, mind, feelings. So coming on to side two when you're ready. Standing the foot you just stood on top of the other foot, seeing how that feels. We have this intention of stillness, of being settled, but we might find we're a bit more wobbly than we hoped for. Let our arms grow up if we like. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Good. Very nice. Keep the shoulders relaxed. And you could bring the hands back into prayer pose in front of you. Okay. When you've had enough, come down and have a little shake out. I just think I have to get the door, I'm afraid. And you're going to be making your way down from the back of your mat, forward bend into dog pose. Okay, so let me just put someone else. That's it. Okay, so yes, hopefully you've made your way from standing at the back of your mat into a forward bend and on into dog pose. And just taking that time in dog pose to sense, how are you feeling by now in dog? I just think it depends if you're feeling particularly lively at this point. There's always the option of the one-legged dog pose. Now that we've stood on one foot in standing, you could give those a little explore if you wanted to. And from your dog pose, I'd like you, very nice, yes, if you're doing your one-leg dog poses, there's no rush, take your time. Looks really lovely. From the dog poses, just take a moment to settle, either in child pose or kneeling, to take the weight off your hands, because we're going to be doing a few more things with our hands on the ground. Might also be a good time to have a little bit of drink of water. Very nice dog there, Sally. So we're going to come back to cat, and then we're going to take cat into face up dog and see how that feels. So when you've given your hands and your wrists a little bit of a rest, come back up onto hands and just, revisit your cat pose a few times and see how that's. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. And then what I'd like you to do is tuck your toes under, round your back to the ceiling and stay rounded to ribs back over your heels. And then at that point, hands a little bit further forwards on the mat. And then let a breath come in. And as you exhale, you're going to start to travel forwards, but you're going to be rounding your back. So you're looking back towards pelvis, watching it move forwards. As your shoulders come over your wrists, then you can start to look forwards. You can let your pelvis go. You can untuck your toes into face up dog. And then we can start to reverse that. So start to go all the way back, tucking the toes under, rounding the back, looking back behind you. Let a breath come in and then travel forwards again. So rounding your back, looking at your pelvis, watching it move forwards. When your shoulders are over your wrists, look forwards, let your pelvis go, untuck your toes. Good. One more time. Reverse that, tuck the toes under, round the back. Let a breath come in, and one more time using this sort of cat, this rounded up cat movement. Come forwards into our face up dog. And this third face up dog, you could have a couple of extra breaths. You may not want to. And then from here, whenever you've had enough, just rock back into child pose, this time with your feet. We're going to do a little bit more face up dog in a moment. But give yourself a couple of quiet breaths. First, have a little drink of water if you like. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Okay, so we're going to use our tail wagging movement now, as some of you might have guessed, to move into face up dog. So if you're in child pose, if you slide your hands a bit further forwards on the floor, so keep your forehead on the floor, slide your hands further forwards on the floor. And then when you come up into kneeling, you're in this longer hands and knees position. When you come onto hands and knees, you're in this longer hands and knees position. And then very simply, we can just wag our tail back into child pose, and we can wag our tail side to side to bring us into face up dog. And so this, use this side to side movement of the pelvis to take us into forward, to face up dog, and to take us back into child. And again, I'm just suggesting maybe 3 times forwards and back. I've already managed to lose count, as I said, I can't really keep track. So again, possibly the 3rd time you come into your face up dog, it might be that you stay. We have the movement, and then we have the sort of stillness. And then again, we'll have a couple of quiet breaths in child pose or kneeling, whichever you prefer. And let the weight of your body settle onto the ground. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. So we're going to make our way now, one more time, up through dog pose and a forward bend into standing. We're going to do a couple more balancing things in standing. So when you're ready, you can come back onto hands and knees. You can tuck your toes under. You can exhale to rock your hips back over your heels. And maybe have a couple of breaths in dog pose at this point. When we come back down to the ground in I always hate to say the final dog pose, we'll stay longer. So just a couple of breaths in this dog. And then walking your hands on into your forward bend. A breath or two in your forward bend. And then touching the backs of your hands, rolling up into standing, trailing your hands up the front of your body, straight up to the ceiling. Breathing in, long and tall, and then bringing your arms back round. Good. And this time you don't need to keep your hands in their pose, have a little shake out. And from here, we're going to take our right arm up. And we're going to start to reach up into the right arm and start to think about shifting the weight onto the right leg. So right arm reaching up, shifting the weight onto the right leg, let the left heel come off the ground. And then come back down. And then we'll take that a little bit further. So reach the right arm, so the same arm, reach the same arm up again. Shift the weight towards your right leg. So the left foot's becoming light, the left heel comes off the ground, and then let the whole of the left foot off the ground and catch the top of your foot. Let your knee drop down towards the floor, or your trouser leg, if that's better for you. Good. Yes, that's it. Sorry, the other arm. And then let your hand come down onto your breastbone, the raised arm hand. Just see how it feels to settle here for 2 or 3 cycles of breath. We're thinking about the bent knee dropping towards the floor. Usually that knee can move back a little bit more than we think it can. Still staying quiet through the front of your body. So sometimes it's also helpful to bring the hand onto the belly, just to feel that the belly sort of softens and empties as the knee drops towards the floor and comes in a bit. Good. Good. Very nice. Well done. Yes, come down. Have a little shake out. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And in a moment, we'll take this balance a little bit further, but we're just keeping it quite simple for the moment. So look down at your feet and then stop looking at your feet. Maybe at this point, you find a point to focus on ahead of you. Reach up through your left arm. And first of all, just going to reach through the left arm, shift the weight onto the left foot, let the right heel come up. And just go as far as that. So the right foot's very light, and then come down for a moment. Bring the left arm down, and then again reach up through the left arm. Shift your weight onto your left leg and foot, let the right heel come up, and then the whole of the right foot. Catch the top of your foot or your trouser leg. Let your hand come onto your breastbone. So we've got our hand in this position between our throat and our heart, as Kurmanadi, this place, according to the ancient yoga texts that helps us feel steady. So see how steady you feel. Maybe you can feel your breath moving through you. Good. 1 or 2 more cycles of breath. If the breath come in, let the breath leave. Good. And come down and have a little shake out. And then here we're going to come back to another variation of that balance in a moment, but we're just going to do a couple of other things first. So from your mat, you're going to step 1 foot forwards. Our little space between our feet. And we're just going to let our weight rock forwards and back. So come onto the ball of the back foot and the heel of the front foot. And as we do this, just dropping down into our feet, feeling our feet on the floor. And then everything else just perhaps retreat a little bit from our field of awareness. So just really feeling the feet. And yeah, I always find it can be quite soon, just rocking forwards and back. But eventually we're going to stop rocking forwards and back. We're going to settle both feet down and you're going forwards, as hopefully they would be if you're going to go for a walk. Bring your hands onto your pelvis for a moment. I want you to try and leave your pelvis where it is and just swing your arms a bit, but try not to move the pelvis. So the shoulders, the ribs, the head can all move. And trying to feel steady below the waist. So a bit like we were when we were kneeling, but it's harder here because the pelvis can move more easily. And then I'd like you to hear it from here to come with bend. You're going to bend, you're going to come to rest on that bent front leg, thigh, keep your back leg straight. And then just fold your body forwards over that front leg. Let your head go. See how it feels to be in this stepped forward. Yes, this foot stepped forward, forward bend. For a couple of cycles of breath. And then sink with feet, come into standing. And keep your front knee bent. So when you arrive back in standing, keep your front knee bent and bring your hands, no, not bringing your hands into prayer pose. Sorry, no, I'm getting confused. So that was what we did last week. We're doing something different this week. So let's just do the other side so far, and then we'll come back to that side. So come back to feet being side by side, step the other foot forwards, and just come to your rocking forwards and back. That's it. Weight into the foot, weight into the ball of your back foot, the heel of your front foot. And again, this feeling that we're just dropping down into our feet. All our awareness is in our foot. It can start to feel very big. And eventually we'll settle the feet down. Bring our hands onto our pelvis. We can have a big exhalation or two. And then start to swing the arms from side to side. Trying not to move below the waist. It doesn't matter too much, but just see if you can find this feeling of sort of heavy pelvis, planted legs, light upper body and arms. And then we'll pause in the centre and we'll come into the forward bend. So bending the front knee, folding the body forwards. Chest can come to rest on your thigh maybe, or you can keep your forearm there. Let your head go. Have a couple of breaths here. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then as you exhale, sinking down into your heels, coming back up into standing. Good. And having a little shake out. So now I've remembered what we're actually doing today. You're going to, from this position, come back to stepping your first foot forwards. And you can do a little bit of your rocking forwards and back. And you're going to bring your front leg hand onto your breastbone. So front leg hand on the breastbone. See if we can follow that. Yeah, it could be confusing. And then you're going to bring all of your weight into your front foot and catch your back foot, like we did a moment ago. And then from here, you can start to reach back behind you with your back foot. So you're moving your back foot away from your bottom. And you're reaching forwards with that hand that's on the breastbone. You might let yourself tilt forwards a little bit. You don't have to keep your pelvis facing forwards, yeah? You can let your pelvis turn a little bit to the side if you prefer. So just see where you can go to. And when we're moving in this, it might well be that we have a wobble. So we can come back to that starting point of hand on the breastbone and catching the foot. And just try again. Where can you go? Reaching your foot back behind you and your arm in front of you. And where could you go would be somewhere that feels perhaps enjoyable, free, uplifting, might be taking it too far, but maybe uplifting. And yes, not to worry if you do feel a bit wobbly. Which could make us feel more relaxed, but it might not. So try stepping forwards with your other foot. Come back to a little bit of rocking forwards and back. Remember, your front foot hand comes onto your breastbone. And then a back foot. And catch your breath, find your balance, and then start to reach your back, the foot you've caught away from your bottom. And start to reach the hand. Where can this forwards and back movement? Well, you can go to fall out of it, come back to our starting point, and just try again. That forwards and backwards movement from our sort of this maybe feels free, perhaps feels, I don't know, uplifting. So I hope, yes, internet seems to be cutting out a little bit. Good. Okay. Let's shake out. Okay, good. Lovely. Excellent. Okay, so from there, let's one last time make our way down through a forward bend, dog pose, and then we're going to come and do a little bit of sitting and breathing. So from the backs of your mats, and it's up to you how long you spend in your forward bend and in dog pose, and also what you do in them. So if you arrive in your forward bend, and like I was then just thinking, actually it's quite nice to do the movements where I'm sweeping my arms around the front of my feet. So often for me it takes a few forward bends until I really feel I want to do that. It's that quite nice, loose, sort of free sweeping your arms from side to side. Imagine you're a weeping willow trailing your branches in the stream, the river. And then from there, you can start to walk, whenever you like, you can start to walk your hands on into dog pose. And when you arrive in dog pose, just seeing how does this dog pose feel. What do you want to do within this dog pose? You might not want to stay in this dog pose, and that's fine. So any movements you want to do are fine. And if you want to just be quiet and feel the movement of your breath, that's also fine. And from dog, whenever you're ready, folding down into child pose or kneeling. Good. For a couple of quiet breaths. Yeah, really through coming onto our belly, and then movement combining our backwards more. And I just want us to revisit our belly at the beginning. So settle in. You can, if you like, rest one or the other, and rest your cheek or your forehead on the back of your hands. And give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. So that's it, on your belly, giving your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. When you've given your pelvis a bit of a wiggle, have a couple of quiet breaths on your belly. See how it feels to be lying here and breathing. And then you can bend your knees and take the soles of your feet to the ceiling, like we did earlier, and start to tilt your feet to the right and to the left. And see how that feels. And do that a couple more times. And then just settle on your belly again for a couple more quiet breaths. So let the lower legs come to rest on the floor. And then just come back to feeling the movement of your breath in your body. So feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. And from lying on your belly, you're then going to make your way over to lie on your back. So it's quite nice if you can just roll onto your back from where you are without having to put your head up the other end of your mat. But if you're going to be happier with your head up the other end of your mat, then please, do what makes you feel most relaxed. And when you arrive on your back, I just want you to give yourself a moment and then see what you want to do. So when you arrive on your back, what do you want to do with your legs? And you're just going to have a moment or two to do whatever you like on your back, which might be nothing, which is absolutely fine. And so one of the things when we've been lying on our belly is when we come to lie on our back, sometimes it just means we can feel really comfortable and settled. That's it. Lovely. So just another moment or two to do whatever you like on your back. And then I'd like you to settle down with your knees bent and your feet standing on the floor. And we're going to move into a sequence using bridge pose where our focus is as much on our breathing as it is on the movement. So if you bring your hands onto your belly, just connect with the feeling of the breath in your belly. So in this sequence, we move on the out breath and we receive our inhalation wherever we are. So I'd like you to feel your out breath leave you. On your belly. And then as you exhale, you're going to bring your arms up and over to rest on the floor, either arms there as you exhale. The rest on the floor. And there you let a breath come in, you feel wide across the front of your, sink into your feet. And you come up again, you receive an inhalation. And then as you pelvis back onto the ground, and as you exhale, you then bring your hands back onto your belly. So I'll talk you through that again. So exhale, you're taking your arms up and over to rest on the floor either side, now so they can rest down, let a breath come in. And then with your next exhaling, your spine, some of your spine come off floor, bridge pose. When you arrive in bridge pose, let a breath come in. And then as you exhale, start to lower your spine back down onto the floor, vertebrae by vertebrae. As you rest your pelvis on the ground, you receive an inhalation. And as you back to your belly. So let a breath come in with your hands on your belly. And then as you exhale, take your arms up and over to rest on the floor either side of your head. Wide enough so they can rest. Receive an inhalation, and with your next exhalation, sink down into your footprints and let your pelvis and some of your spine come up in bridge pose. When you're in bridge pose, receive an in-breath, and then with your next exhalation, start to let the spine come back down onto the floor, vertebrae. As you rest your back down, receive your in-breath. And then as you exhale, your hands down onto your belly. We're going to do this 3 more times. I'll talk you through once more, and then I'll let you do a couple on your own. So receive an inhalation with your hands on your belly. And then as you exhale, let your arms come to rest on the floor either side of your head. Receiving an inhalation there, feeling wide through the chest. And then exhaling down in your footprints, let your pelvis come up, let your spine pick up off the floor. Receive an inhalation in bridge pose, and then rolling back down vertebrae by vertebrae. As your pelvis touches the floor, you receive the in-breath. And then as you exhale, you bring your hands back onto your belly. So see if you can do that twice more in your own time. And it doesn't matter if you go wrong. Just remember, we're moving on our out breath. We're reaching wherever we arrive with the out breath. And it's as much about the breathing as the movement. It's an opportunity to slow down, to keep us focused on the breath and the movement together. So it looks like one more time you're going to go through this. So receiving an in-breath with your hands on your belly. Exhaling, moving the arms to rest on the floor either side of your head. And then just carry on going in your own time. Receiving the in-breath when you're still moving with your exhalation. When you've finished, which it looks like most of you are just about finished, then fold your knees into your chest. You can hold around your knees, a little bit of rocking, or you can just lie quietly. And then if you like, if you've got time, we're just at about half 10, but I thought it might be nice to do a floor twist just before we lie quietly. So if you've got time to do that, what I would suggest is from your knees folded into your chest, you take your legs up to the ceiling, you give them a bit of a shake out. And then what I like to do at this point is wrap one arm around the back of my knees and then let the heels fold in a little bit. Take the other arm out on the floor at shoulder height. So we're going to take the legs down to the floor towards the arm that's supporting them. So away from your arm that's on the floor at shoulder height. And I tend to like to keep my arm under my legs. So you don't have to, you might be comfortable to take your arm out from under your legs. And just see how that twist feels. You don't have to stay there that long. You want to make sure that your outstretched arm and shoulders stay settled and heavy on the floor. And we'll give ourselves another breath or two on this side. So with each exhalation, there's just that feeling of settling your weight onto the ground. In your own time, you can let your knees come back to the centre. So again, I would just then like to take my legs up to the ceiling. For some reason, it just really helps me with the twist to bring my legs up to the ceiling, give them a shake out. And then again, when you wrap your arm around the back of your legs, it's with your legs sort of partially up to the ceiling. They end up, when you bend your knees, really snug into your chest. With your arm out on the floor at shoulder height, and then see how it feels to take the legs in the opposite direction. So hopefully you've swapped your arms over. That's nice. And again, 2 or 3 or 4 cycles of breath on this side. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Have another breath or 2 there. And then bringing your legs back to the centre. Again, you might like one last shake out of your legs up towards the ceiling. It does feel nice when it's hot. And then just let yourself lie, either with your knees bent or your legs long. That's for a few cycles of breath before I ring the singing bowl. Nice to feel the length of your body on the ground. So you don't need to leap up. There's no rush. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Okay.